Hello, BookTube. I've got a large stack of new arrivals here for you, things that were unfortunately opened off camera, so you don't get a little bit of that Christmas morning thrill. But there are a wide variety of things, including quite a few things that, on the surface at least, don't interest me as much as they might end up interesting you. And there are almost all of them forthcoming, so I thought I'd show them to you so that you know they're out there and maybe can plan accordingly. And the first one comes out in just a few days. And I got the advanced copy, but I want to know what, some of you must have more experience with this than I do, and I want to know what you think. I myself have sort of written these books off, and this author off. Read one, wasn't impressed, and predicted that I wouldn't be impressed. I wonder if any of you have had better experiences and maybe can set me straight. This is from Akashic Books, and this is by David Duchovny. It's David Duchovny's new book. It's The Reservoir. Let me read you the description here. Follows an unexceptional man in an exceptional time. We see our present-day pandemic world through the eyes of former Wall Street veteran Ridley as he looks back upon his life during quarantine. Sitting and brooding night after night, gazing out his huge picture window high above the Central Park Reservoir, Ridley spots a flashing light in an apartment across the park as if a lonely quarantined person is signaling him in Morse code. His determination to find out who this mystery woman is leads him to an epic quest that will ultimately tempt him with either delusional madness or the fulfillment of his own mythic fate. We accompany Ridley as he leaves the safety of his apartment window and descends into a dangerous, increasingly surreal world of global conspiracies, madness, and sickness of this viral time. As his actions grow more and more uncharacteristic, he realizes the key to all the mysteries of now and even of all history seem to lie beneath the deep, freezing waters of the reservoir. And for David, they give you Akashic Books gives you a picture of David Duchovny, and when they give you his address, his bio note, it is that he's an award-winning actor, writer, director, New York Times best-selling author, and singer-songwriter. With an acting career spanning more than 3 decades, Duchovny is a 2-time Golden Globe winner and a 4-time Emmy nominee. He is a prolific author whose 4th novel, Truly Like Lightning, was published in February of 2021. And then a couple more novels are mentioned. Notice what's not mentioned, right? Well, the obvious thing that's not mentioned, that is not an accident that the X-Files is not mentioned. It speaks to this desire on some level, this author's management, or maybe Duchovny himself, to reinvent himself as an author. But I've only read one of his books, and it seemed to me to be the standard celebrity vanity exercise. The exact thing that I was expecting it to be. And I'm wondering, since he's keeping at it, I'm wondering if maybe those expectations were wrong, and maybe I was seeing what I expected to see. Have any of you read David Duchovny's books? Have any of you read his novels? Have any of you planned to read The Reservoir? Have you liked them? If you've read them, do you find anything worthwhile in them? This is a tiny little thing. It's, well, the book doesn't tell me, but let's see. Yeah, this is 100 pages long. It's a novella. It's nothing. And I wonder if maybe I'm missing the boat here. That's all. Let me know. But the next book is fascinating subject. This comes out in September. I think I have a pub sheet for this. This is by Douglas Rushkoff, and it is called Survival of the Richest. And it's about billionaire getaways, a subject that I know a little bit about, believe it or not. In 2017, 5 billionaires summoned media theorist and digital economist Douglas Rushkoff to a remote desert island for a private consult. The topic, in their words, the event. The coming catastrophe they have no capacity or intent to prevent. Specifically, they wanted to know where to build their bunkers and how to maintain control of their security workers once money was obsolete, right? You can't pay your security detail or your chefs. You're not going to cook your own food. You can't pay them to do anything once the preppers, hits the fan. In the prepper community, that is the event, is that, the S hits the fan. And everything that you knew, everything that you relied on is gone, including currency. We always suspected, but now we know. The tech elite have a plan to survive the apocalypse. They want to leave us all behind. As a tech insider long trusted for his predictive insights, the author here has been in the room with the new ruling class, just offhandedly referred to that way. Through the rising crises, including pandemics, climate change, and social unrest of recent years, their desperation has made it plain. These men are under the influence of what Rushkoff calls the mindset, a Silicon Valley delusion that as long as they have enough money and the right technology, they can break the laws of physics, economics, and morality to escape a disaster of their own making. I don't think the author wrote that summary. These men don't think that the disaster is their own making. They think they are victims of it. And they aren't intending to break the laws of physics. All the rest of it, yes, but not the laws of physics. That's overblown. In a new book that expands on his viral Medium essay, so Rushkoff wrote an essay about this for Medium, which I have not read. This book traces the origins of the mindset in science and technology through its current expression in the missions to Mars, isolated island bunkers, and the metaverse, which are three radically different things. Even the billionaires who are most entrenched in the mindset do not think they can hurry the clock sufficiently to have a working, sustainable colony on Mars in their lifetime. They don't think that's possible. That, in fact, isn't possible. And the metaverse doesn't work if the internet is off. So that doesn't work either. But island bunkers? Oh, yes. That's where my own knowledge of this subject comes in. Because there are more ultra-rich people in the world than you think who have spent a lot of time and money on exactly that. The YouTube documentaries, the documentaries on Netflix that you see about extremist prepper cults who have, prefab metal bunkers out in the desert, and that's where they're expecting to ride out the S hitting the fan. That is not. That's exactly what is okay for distribution. The people who've spent a lot of money on this don't want you to know anything about it. They don't want you to know the thoughts never crossed their mind. And they've spent elaborate amounts of time and huge fortunes, nation-propping fortunes, on exactly this. I'm amazed to see a book on the subject. I'm amazed that they would allow it to be printed. They've spent a huge amount of money on a backdoor from the S hitting the fan, from the event. They sense that something is coming. They don't know what it is, but they want the ability to crawl into a hole and pull the earth in after them and just ride it out, if necessary, indefinitely. And believe you me, when you have everything and you don't want any of it taken away, when your attention eventually turns to preserving it against literally anything, you'll work hard to make that happen. I know two people who are from a lot of money, but they're from old money, and old money does not think this way. But they know people themselves who obsess over this very subject, over what would you do, how could you make this work, could you have an underground hydroponics lab, could you build far enough underground so that you would not be contaminated by a nuclear blast, even if it was near to your location at the surface. A lot of persistent problems. Drinkable water, for one. Circulating air. Even the best of most of those prefab doomsday bunkers draw their air from the surface. They have all sorts of purification elements in between that air and you, but A, there's not any way to purify heavily irradiated air, and B, the vents up at the surface that are drawing the air for you to live on are visible. The walkers in The Living Dead, the zombies that shuffle around in shambly clothing, that is how these people view you. That's how they view everyone in the world. And as I mentioned on this channel a few times, there are quite a few of these people who have never had they haven't had any contact with the outside world in years. Not just the pandemic, although there were plenty of stories that surfaced during the worst of the pandemic in early 2020. There were plenty of stories that surfaced about the mega rich who just decided to go onto their yachts and stay offshore forever. You've got the ocean that you're on top of. You've got desalination technology on board. You have a staff on board. You have massive living quarters, everything you could possibly want. You can move around. You can move away from trouble. It's not just them, though. It's not just them, and it's not just then. It goes back a lot further. I find it fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I can't wait to read this. Although I will wait because this comes out in September. But I wanted you to know that this is coming out. Survival of the Richest. What the mega rich are doing to prepare for the event. It'll naturally make you think just a little, well, what would I do to prepare for the event? Because the event might not be political. One element of it might be, but it could be something completely impersonal. I've mentioned on this channel before that, the sun ejects planetary system large flares of plasma regularly. I mean, it does so every day. If one of those flares were to strike the Earth, the grid, as we know it, electrical, internet, all of that would go away. It would just go away. And it would need to be essentially reinvented from the ground up using 19th century technology. It would be, in other words, it would go away and it would be gone for a long time. Also, years ago on this channel, I mentioned the threat of a pandemic. We did indeed get a pandemic, but we didn't get as bad a pandemic as we could have. Seems hard to believe that in the wake of the first ravages of COVID-19, but it could be worse. There are viral models in the world right now that we know would be much, much worse. If one of those would have happened, that's another thing that these billionaires are thinking about. A whole bunch of other things too, including a fascist takeover of the most powerful country in the world, America. If that would have happened, there's a handful of very vocal fascists in this country who think, well, if that happens, at least I'm on the winning side. You're not. No one's on the winning side. Especially Americans who have a generational memory now of what it's like to be free. People who don't have that generational memory can swap rulers. They can lose their democratic freedoms because, what are you going to do as long as there's food in the market? Americans are going to find that a lot harder to palate. They really are. Even the ones who think that they're winning team, that they're on the winning team, and so it won't be so bad for them, but it'll really own the libs. If they're not in the West Wing, they're a slave like everybody else. And that is another eventuality that these people think of, is what happens if not only the S hits the fan, but if the ruling party suddenly doesn't like the existence of billionaires. Well, I got to take it with me, so where do I go? How do I cover my tracks completely? Fascinating subject. So I thought I'd show you. Let's move on, though. So we're not getting far from COVID. We'll deal with this next one. This is from the Harvard Business Review, and it comes out in late July, so still plenty of time for this. This is by Peter Loftus, and it's called The Messenger: Moderna, the Vaccine, and the Business Gamble That Changed the World. Very effective cover. Notice, I am not complaining about some of these covers. Not all American covers have to be ugly. This is about Moderna, which has become almost synonymous with the vaccine to beat COVID-19, to control it. At the start of 2020, Moderna was a waning biotech unicorn, still years away from delivering its first product despite a decade of development and a potential breakthrough innovation using RNA to combat disease. Investors were getting antsy, or worse, skeptical. Then the coronavirus pandemic hit, and Moderna became a central player in a global drama, a David to pharma's Goliaths, turning its technology toward breaking the global grip of a terrible disease. By year's end, as the outbreak was at its worst, Moderna delivered one of the world's first COVID-19 vaccines with a stunningly high rate of protection. The achievement not only offered the world a way out of a crippling pandemic, but also validated Moderna's gene-based technology, transforming the company into a global industry power, swelling its market value on the prospects for new drugs and vaccines for years to come. Biotech and the venture capital community that fuels it will never be the same. And Peter Loftus is a Wall Street Journal reporter who decides to dig into this story. I can't wait to see I will wait because this doesn't come out for a while, but it's going to be fascinating to see the story that he uncovers. Then this next one, and this is what I was talking about for months now. We're going to get deluged with COVID-19 books of all kinds. Not just the cranky conspiracy theory books, but also histories and investigative reporting of all kinds. And I welcome it because it's a major historical event that we all lived through, that we're living through right now. But we lived through, when I say lived in the past tense, you know what I mean. I mean 2020. We lived through 2020. And it's a major historical event. There isn't a history book that will ever be written that doesn't mention it. And we lived through it. So that's important. I'm okay with books being written. about it. They'll American books that are written about it will be lying about it, but other books outside in free countries, there will be books written about it, and they will be important. It'll be important to understand this, how society understood it and how they reacted to it. And Moderna played a big part in that. You might have a Moderna product swimming around in your bloodstream right now. So this next one is due in September. So again, it's a forthcoming book. Might want to put it on your Amazon list if the subject interests you. The subject, on one level, very much does not interest me, but I've had a nibble at the line of a possible freelance reviewer of this kind of book. So at least it has a destination in mind. This is by Manil Suri, and it is called The Big Bang of Numbers: How to Build the Universe Using Only Math. So let's see what this is. Does this have a pub sheet? Oh, it does. Okay. So you can look at the cover while I tell you about this thing. Our universe has multiple origin stories, from religious creation myths to the Big Bang of scientists. Okay, minor correction here right out of the gate. The Big Bang is not of scientists. The Big Bang happened. It's not on a par with God saying "Let there be light," or someone dancing the universe into existence, or an ice giant licking ice until he gets humans. They're not equivalent in any way. It's not the scientists are the only people who have the Big Bang. You live in the universe that expanded out of that event, whether you believe in it or not. Anyway, but if we leave those behind and start from nothing, no matter, no cosmos, not even empty space, could we create a universe using only math? Okay, don't like the word create there. The universe was not created. But also, I also don't like this isn't the author doing this. It's just a pub sheet, and God knows what a publicist for, this is W.W. Norton, could possibly have made of this book. So they were probably doing their best. But the implication of that line is that the universe itself, as we have it now, came from no matter, no cosmos, not even empty space. No one's ever observed anything like that. No one, as far as I know, can even guess that such a state of complete absence of anything is even possible. No one theorizes that the universe came from such a thing. But in this case, as an elaborate thought exercise, we are going to imagine that state of complete characteristic-free nothingness did exist. And what if it existed, could we make the universe out of just math? Why you would want to do that, I have no idea. Why not make it out of mega stuffed Oreos like a sane person? Let's see here. In this new mathematical origin story, mathematician and novelist Manil Suri, I thought I knew that name. I'll have to look up what novels this author wrote. I know that I've read something by this author, and I was thinking, well, if he writes about numbers and astrophysics, then probably not. But I might have read, the name sounds familiar to me. Anyway, Manil Suri creates a natural progression of tools needed to design our world, starting with numbers and continuing through geometry, algebra, and beyond. Madness is what lurks beyond. He reveals the secret lives of real and imaginary numbers, teaches them to play abstract games with real-world applications, detours into physics, and discovers beautiful patterns hidden in plain sight. Okay. Offering both a surprising new perspective for math aficionados and an accessible introduction for anyone daunted by calculation. The first one, I'm sure of. The second one, not in a million years. In a pig's eye, as Bones McCoy would say. This book sparks, quote, a thrill that may catch you off guard, an exhilarating sensation of playfulness, power, and insight, which comes from Steven Strogatz. Okay. This comes out in late September from W.W. Norton. It's needless to say, not the book for me. I think I know the recipient for this book right now. But in case you're interested in numbers, my God, look at the illustrations in this thing. Oh my God. On every page. There's gobbledygook like that on every page. Oh my God. So the real question will be, before I send this out in the mail, do I even attempt it myself? Do I even attempt it? I don't know. We're on much, much surer ground with this next one. Because it's a murder mystery. And it's a murder mystery by an author a lot of you like. In fact, a lot of you like this author more than I do. And maybe, I keep waiting for every new novel to be the one where I suddenly become a mega fan like a lot of you are. But a lot of you are mega fans, so you're going to want to know this is coming. This comes out in September. This is The Rising Tide by Anne Cleeves, a Vera Stanhope novel. I know a lot of you like this author a lot more than I do. Lovely, lovely cover. And the plot line, if I remember correctly, I don't think this has. Oh no, it does have a pub sheet. The plot line on this one is very familiar. Probably 100, maybe 200 murder mysteries have been written with this kind of a plot. But you know what I always say, that doesn't matter. It matters what kind of a job you do. So let me see here. For 50 years, a group of friends have been meeting regularly for reunions on Holy Island, celebrating the school trip where they met and the friend they lost to the rising causeway tide 5 years later. So it's a reunion, but it's at heart a sad reunion. Now, when one of them is found hanged, Vera, that is Vera Stanhope, is called in. Learning that the dead man had recently been fired after misconduct allegations, Vera knows she must discover what the friends are hiding and whether the event of many years before could have led to the murder then and now. Oh, okay. So the friend they lost to the rising causeway tide 5 years ago, 5 years later, it sounds like that's being characterized as a murder. I'll read it to find out. It's a long way off for me. But with the tide rising, secrets long hidden are finding their ways to the surface, and Vera and the team may find themselves in more danger than they could have believed possible. So this comes out in early September, and it's, obviously it's an auto-buy for all of you Vera Stanhope fans, but I'm curious to know how many of those there are, and when the pub sheet mentions that bit about Vera and the team, I think I've only read one of these books, and it was a long time ago. Does that team all have separate individual sub stories of their own, plots that have been evolving over books after books after books? Am I going to get this? Is what I'm asking. I know on this channel all the time I say I shouldn't ask that question. That's the author's job. If I read the 10th book in a series, or how many Vera Stanhope books have there been? Does this thing tell me? Yeah, well, about 10. If I read the 10th book in a series and two members on her team are clandestine lovers, and you're supposed to know that. That's some sort of Easter egg. And it detracts from the book. Well, that's the author's fault. That means that the author no longer cares about new readers. But I'm still curious to know, those of you who've been reading these books from the beginning, how accessible are they to a reader who hasn't been? And, you Vera Stanhope fans out there, how eager are you for this thing? Anyway, if that was more familiar ground than starting a universe from math, and if murder mysteries are more familiar ground than that, then this next one is about as familiar ground as it gets for yours truly. This is by John T. McGreevy, and it is A History of Catholicism. It's a new forthcoming History of Catholicism. This also comes out in September. So let's see what we have here. Again, I am not complaining about any of these covers because they're all lovely. They're all just fine. They're not hideous. They're in fact evocative. So I'm not complaining about any covers today. Beginning with the French Revolution, extending to the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s, and concluding with present-day crises, John T. McGreevy's landmark book chronicles the dramatic upheavals and internal divisions shaping the most multicultural, multilingual, and global institution in the world. Through powerful individual stories and sweeping bird's-eye views, this book provides a mesmerizing assessment of the Church's complex role in modern history. So we're starting at the French Revolution. We're starting 1,800 years after the Church started. We're just dealing with modern history. A lot of you who are interested in this subject may be daunted by the typical length of these things, and the reason they're that long is because they're going back to St. Peter. This one is not doing that. Let's see here. McGreevy exposes the paradoxes of the Church, an institution surprisingly adaptable to different cultures, riven by faction, yet called to common action. With admirable candor, impartiality, elegance, and economy, he tells a story of failings and faith. And that assessment there is coming from the author Felipe Fernandez Armesto, whose novels you may know, I think. Did he write novels? He's a historian, too. Maybe it's his histories that I'm thinking of, his civilization. Throughout this, Majestic, that comes from Jeremy Adelman, volume. McGreevy details the currents of reform within the Church, as well as movements protective of traditional customs and beliefs. Okay, so a full-dress history of modern Catholicism, starting with the French Revolution. So a few hundred years of Catholic history here. Coming out in September. Did I mention the exact time in September? Was I told? Yeah, early September, for those of you who might be interested. Then we have, in a way, another COVID book. They're going to come in all their varieties. This is a finished copy. I don't think I have a sheet for this. No, I don't. But it's a finished copy, so it might be out already. This is by Robert Zaretsky, and it is called Victories Never Last, Reading and Caregiving in a Time of Plague. Once again, no objections to the cover. And I can just read you from the dust jacket for this. It's a gambit for a COVID-19 book that is predictable. But again, that doesn't matter. It matters how well it's done. In any time of disruption or grief, many of us seek guidance in the works of great writers who endured similar circumstances. During the first years of the COVID-19 pandemic, historian and biographer Robert Zaretsky did the same while also working as a volunteer at a nursing home in South Texas. In this book, he weaves his reflections on the pandemic siege of his nursing home with the testimony of 6 writers on their own times of plague: Thucydides, Marcus Aurelius, Montaigne, Daniel Defoe, Mary Shelley, and Albert Camus, whose novel The Plague provides the title of this book. The author delves into these writers to uncover lessons that can provide deeper insight into our pandemic era. At the same time, he goes beyond the literature to invoke his own experience of a tragedy that enveloped his Texas nursing home, one which first took the form of chronic loneliness and then, inevitably, the deaths of many residents whom he came to know, who we come to know through his stories. In doing so, the author shows the power of great literature to connect directly to one's own life experience in a different moment and time. So, on one level, a very predictable gimmick. Let's write a COVID-19 response book that looks at other famous plagues. And so every chapter will be, I imagine, every chapter will be devoted to one of those authors, and we will see. We will see. I don't know Robert Zaretsky. I don't know anything about him, but I can guarantee you that not all of those authors interest him equally. Will that be obvious in the chapters? I have to look up the date on this and put a slip in it. Most of the rest of these are doing me the favor of having the date on the spine. This one's out now, probably. So, okay, then we have, this is an August release. So a lot of you will be marking these down on your list if they interest you. That's why I do these new arrivals, these coming attractions videos. You know, just if these are already out of packages, so we don't have the thrill of opening them together, then at least I want to show you a wide variety of subjects, even if they don't particularly interest me, in case they interest you. So you know they're coming, put them on your radar. So this is coming in August. And do I have a sheet on this? Yes, I do. Great. Okay, sheets on a lot of these things. This is Danger Zone, The Coming Conflict with China by Hal Brands and Michael Beckley. Let's see here. And in this book, the authors argue that the most dangerous countries aren't confident rising powers. They're insecure peaking powers who worry that they are running out of time. It has become conventional wisdom that America and China are running a superpower marathon that may last a century. Yet the authors pose a counterintuitive question. What if the sharpest phase of that competition is more like a decade-long sprint? So not a marathon that lasts a century, but a sprint that's coming up. China's rise is over. The pub sheet just says that flatly, and I bet that's what the book says flatly. It will be facing strategic encirclement and economic decline in the coming years, which will make its president eager to grab whatever gains he can, including by using military force. China is at a perilous moment, strong enough to violently challenge existing order, yet losing confidence that time is on its side. Numerous examples from antiquity to the present show that rising powers become more aggressive when their fortunes fade, their difficulties multiply, and they realize they must achieve their ambitions now or miss the chance to do so forever. So, pretty interesting thinking, it sounds like, on the subject of China. I see a lot of books on that subject. Don't see a whole lot of interesting thinking. Who are the authors? Hal Brands is the Henry Kissinger Distinguished Professor at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies and a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And Michael Beckley is an associate professor of political science at Tufts and a non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. So they're both from this bogus think tank, the American Enterprise Institute. Maybe that gives them some entree to talk to diplomats on both sides of the red curtain. I have no idea. But it's coming out in August. If you are fascinated by the subject of China or know somebody who is, this certainly, I can't attest to it myself directly, but it certainly sounds more intelligent than most of the stuff we get on that subject. Right, let's shift things around here, because I've got to deal all the stuff that I'm doing with ergonomics with the books has got to be done on this side, because the little princess is on this side. I don't want to disturb her at all. So Let's see. We've got a few more to go, and then we'll be done. This next one will definitely interest a lot of you. Oh my, definitely. I don't have a pub sheet for this. It's a finished copy, so it might be out already. A work of heavy, prodigious scholarship, third in a series. So, if you have the first two, you now know that the second one is either out or coming out in June. And if you don't have the first two, well, the series exists, and it might be something you need to get. This is by Gary Scharnhorst. This is from the University of Missouri Press. And this is The Life of Mark Twain, The Final Years, 1891-1910. Big, thick thing with a huge amount of reference work. Look at that tight-packed reference for 150 pages in the back. This is a 3-volume scholarly biography of Mark Twain, and this volume deals with his final years, which, if you know anything about Mark Twain's life, you know that is going to be a very, very painful period to read about. He lost 2 daughters, he lost his wife, he lost his fortune, worried at many times that he was losing his faculties. It was a nightmare end. It was amazing that he could put such a humorous spin on it as he did from time to time, but not always, and not in private, and certainly not in his works. Oh my God! If you've read his favorite of all his books was his unreadable book on Joan of Arc, and if you read that book without his name on the jacket, if you picked it up and just the text, you would never guess that it was written by Mark Twain. Never in a million years. And he liked it the most, and it's a book that has the clouds of doom and defeat hanging over it all the time. And the same thing is true. During this period, if I remember correctly, he wrote a Tom Sawyer novel, or more than one. The Tom Sawyer sequels that nobody reads, that are pretty raw in periods. Anyway. Let's. I don't have the sheet for this. Let's just read from the dust jacket. The last installment in the author's 3-volume biography chronicles the life of Samuel Clemens between his family's extended trip to Europe in 1891 and his death in 1910 at the age of 74. During these years, Clemens struggled with bankruptcy, returns to the lecture circuit, and endures the loss of 2 daughters and his wife. It is also during this time that he composes some of his darker, most critical works, including, I can't believe, the author's got to mention the Joan of Arc book, Pudd'nhead Wilson. Okay, The Personal Recollections of Joan of Arc, Tom Sawyer Abroad, Tom Sawyer Detective, Following the Equator, Number 44, The Mysterious Stranger, and most of his autobiography. And then we have a huge quote, a huge advanced blurb from Joseph Sixilla, the author of Heretical Fictions, Religion and the Literature of Mark Twain. So a fellow Mark Twain scholar blurbed this thing. I have to confess, I don't remember the first 2 volumes. It's possible that they passed me by completely. The University of Missouri Press doesn't always have me on their radar. I don't always have them on my radar. I find it hard to believe that two volumes in a major biography of Mark Twain come out, and I didn't know anything about them. But it's not ringing a bell at all. And for me, the middle volume, if this is going chronologically in Twain's life, for me, the middle volume would be the time that I'm most interested in. Because the dark clouds, the curtains start to get drawn in these years. But all the more reason why I want to read a volume devoted to them. Fantastic. So I don't have the ability right here to tell you whether or not this is out. But you Mark Twain fanatics, especially Mark Twain completists, maybe even especially those of you out there who have Scharnhorst's other 2 volumes, will definitely want to know that this is coming, right? So it's coming. Then we'll deal with some fun. We'll finish out with some fun, since that volume covers some pretty depressing stuff. And the first thing that we will deal with connects with an earlier book, The Survival of the Richest. Because that book, The Survival of the Richest, is about... Oh, wait. No, that's not right. That's the wrong pub sheet. The Survival of the Richest deals with what really rich people are going to do in the event that the S hits the fan, right? That is what... that's what that book is all about. But governments are also worried about that. They're also worried about what happens if the S hits the fan. And this is amazing. This is a big, colorful thing. This comes out on July the 5th. It's not out yet. This is a big, colorful thing that gives us a tour through government preparations for the S hitting the fan. This is called Apocalypse Ready. The Manual of Manuals, A Century of Panic Prevention by Taras Young. Let's see what we have. For the past century, as disasters and impending catastrophes, from extreme weather events to epidemics, have caused rising levels of collective fear in nations around the world. Governments have produced and distributed plans to help citizens prepare and avert calamity. And there are 4 such calamities that are addressed in this book. In this book, history writer and researcher Taras Young brings together official survival and emergency documents from the United States, the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, Japan, China, Germany, Canada, France, and many other places that offer invaluable life-saving strategies for possible cataclysms, real or imagined. This unique visual guide is organized into 4 major categories: pandemics, natural disasters, nuclear war, and alien invasion. From leaflets showing how to build an earthquake shelter and booklets providing step-by-step advice on how to protect yourself and your family during a nuclear war, from posters showing how to minimize your chance of catching Spanish flu, and documents indicating how to identify aliens, this carefully curated selection of disaster planning documents showcases the variety of approaches taken by governments since the early 1900s. And that's exactly what it does. You've got to see inside this thing. It's amazing. You get the public posters, you get the illustrations, the handbooks that came out from all of these different countries. You get the advice that they were giving to their citizens, usually for free. The U.S. government, for instance, if you go to usgov.org, they've got a huge amount of this sort of material that's downloadable for free. You don't have to pay a penny for it. Here's how to stock your shelter. This is from 1961. Somewhere in this book has got to be pictures of students doing duck and cover drills under their wooden desks. Oh my God, there it is. How many of you does this bring back memories? For those of you who are very young, that's what we used to do as a drill to protect ourselves from a nuclear bomb going off nearby. Of course, it would do nothing at all to do that, but that's what we used to do. Oh, now I want to know what the posters look like for aliens. I wonder, if they'll be last. Okay, here are the different identification charts for you to look for. That's from 1964. Will there be a guide to examining different kinds of aliens? No? Oh man, look at all this stuff here. Incredible. All right, so Taras Young went through all of these archives and then just got them together. Look at that. This is an old, what is this? 19 okay, I don't know when this came out. The typography makes me think that it's fairly old. Jason Harrigan could probably identify it just on sight. 1945. This is Hurricane Month. With all the different charts like that. Fantastic. Oh, this is going to be a book to lose myself in. Just lose myself in. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, this feast like this, it's coming out in just a little bit. And then we'll finish up with the last one I know some of you are interested in. This is 1,000 Years of Manga. And it comes out in mid-July. It is by Bridget Koyama Richard. And it's this thing. Big illustrated thing. 1,000 Years of Manga. It spans the history of manga in all its splendor and diversity. Among the many highlights included are Hokusai's seminal Hokusai manga of 1814, the advent of the Gekiga style of the 1950s, the landmark Astro Boy, who even I recognize, Lady Oscar, Ryoko Ikeda's shoujo manga aimed at young girls, samurai sagas, alternative productions by the review Garo, the demons that populate the world of Mizuki Sugura, and the latest creations of Jiro Taniguchi. Each period is covered in detail by the author and illustrated with drawings and prints. So this comes out in very little time, a month. And we didn't open any of these books on camera, but we can open this one from its cellophane as a kind of pale version of that. Just so that I'm curious, just like you are, to see inside this thing, to see what it looks like. But this here, we'll look through it, and then I got to remember to give you the price on it, because I know that a lot of you are going to want to pre-order this thing. So this is what it looks like on the inside. Oh my! Oh goodness gracious! Oh my! So it starts with full color historical reproductions, and then takes us all the way to the present day, or roughly so. And what are the last pictures in this thing? And how many of you manga fans will know all of this? James Holder was probably wincing while I was mispronouncing all of those names. But I wonder how many of these things you'll know. Yeah, I don't know any of these. Oh, well, the last chapter looks historical as well. But then we have Galaxy Express, sorts of things like that. I don't know anything about this art form at all. The more I think about it, the more I think I should just send this to James. Well, anyway, this comes out on July 12th, and it is $40, which is actually reasonable for what you're getting here. This is huge. It's oversized, and it's a full historical overview. This is going to be $40 in July. The 1,000 years of manga. So there you go. That is a sort of a forthcoming thing. New and forthcoming things. Titles that you want to maybe lodge in the back of your mind. I don't think I can do a Steve Pyramid. We'll give it a try. 1,000 years of manga. Apocalypse Ready. A visual tour through governments trying to prepare their citizens for the worst. The Life of Mark Twain, Volume 3, the last volume in a trilogy. Danger Zone, a new assessment of China. The Victories Never Last, a look at how various writers have dealt with their own plagues. His New History of Catholicism, extending back only a few centuries. We have The Rising Tide, Anne Cleeves' new Vera Stanhope novel. We have The Big Bang of Numbers, what if you could build a universe just using math. We have The Messenger, about Moderna developing its vaccine. We have Survival of the Richest, the very richest people on Earth building bunkers to bug out. And finally, The Reservoir by David Duchovny, his latest novel. So there you go. That was quite a long video. Sorry about that. But I had a lot of them. I didn't want to break it up. Those are some new and forthcoming things. We will talk about more books here in a bit. But I'm going to wrap this up. So I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.